today. And, you know, if you get a victory royale, you're cutting yourself an early evening here. However, we still have consistency to look forward to as well. So Heat's formats bringing us a little bit of everything here as we start things off early here with some contested drops over at the Latte Landing, as there are several teams looking to make a stay.
Yeah, two teams just straight up, pure Kraken. Looks like Clout and Claps just taking two different sides, so a different and a slower approach to the game. But Moneymaker Fortnite from EU, like I said, these guys have won a game in Ebound Finals. They've proven they could kind of top with the best of them on NA, but Moneymaker gets it down onto one. He instantly gets down right back. At this drop spot monster, there's not a lot of chest and floor loot, so you kind of got to use whatever you get granted. And right now, Zaris popping that HP to try to get it back on up. Fnayan's going for the revive, and this is where it comes down to a 1v1.
Oh, little hesitation there, though. He actually missed the pickup almost for a second, but he ends up getting it. Is the distraction enough? It's not, as Moneymaker gets taken down here by the hands of Zaris. And just like that, all that travel to get turned down here in game number 1, we're going to have to hit the drawing board.
It's like Zaris and the Guzzle Juice, forgot it there for a moment, really pays off. He has 150 HP and shield, a huge mismatch. Even when he gets Moneymaker back up, the instant knock. And just look at the loadout. Chaos Reloader, Rapid Fire SMG, literally with playing in sticks and stones, is able to clutch up.
Yeah, sometimes the distraction is just enough. This time, it is not going to be it. Ritual Cold, of course, the team that we are going to have our eyes on. Cold has been continuing to do exactly what he does, you know, just kind of disappears from the spotlight every time we're in the off season. But when it comes around to playing under and on the big stage, we already know he shows up every single time. We're expecting a big performance there. Jumping over to the other side though, Jacob. Got a little lurk play, possibly getting set up here.
Yeah, kind of seeing the differences from drops at POIs and some of those buildings that have a ton of loot, and then these trade, they do that one elimination. But if you look at their loadout, you know, what cost did it really have? And a lot of the attention you see in Heatwave Harbor, that one has a bunch of players there contested between two. Hottie and Noise are going to be on the western edge, so this is definitely going to be a tough position for Fly and Trey. They almost probably feel like they're in desperation mode, needing to lurk around and get an elimination here.
Definitely, and that's what happens sometimes, right? You chase players out kind of desperately off to the side of the drop there, and all of a sudden you lose kind of your rotate, right? You lost the plot. But jumping over to JoJo, Aoxy, what's going on over here is they're just getting situated right now. Talk about a fast track to max mats here. Love to see it for JoJo and Aoxy. The split is working out very well for them. This is a team that, you know, consistently plays very well under heat settings. Obviously, no strangers to an FNCS format, let alone the set lobby. So, the Oxy and JoJo, we are thinking, if nothing else, will be making their way through consistency here tonight.
Yeah, this is one of those teams, you know, you're mentioning, I feel like they can fly under the radar. They're one of the teams that have their EWC spot already secured, and we know how difficult that actually was. So uncontested here, good start to the game for them, but you see on the other side of the map, not all those blessings can go around. Hottie's going to be stuck by himself, but it is going to be a short 1v1 as he takes down Shore, wins the fight. They have 3 eliminations as a team, so you got to imagine, even with your teammate going down, you have to be feeling very, very confident when it comes to that Storm Surge.
Packing quite the punch there with the shotgun. Just goes to swap it out there, get the quick reboot now. Hopefully it doesn't set them too far back. But hey, winning your drop, you're earning your respect here. That's what matters. Ace Cube, D-Lex doing the same exact thing here, just north of the harbor. Vivid said it best with the loadout preferences, right? This pistol coming in. Big play here.
Yeah, typically in the past, you kind of see a lot of the AR for the damage in the distance, but this pistol, especially if you're one of these tier 1 pro players, you kind of have the accuracy, you're able to kind of hold it in the distance like you're seeing Doxy there. You can definitely deal a ton of damage, and that's why you're seeing either the Stinger SMG or kind of these pistols run the lobby for the most part. Besides that, you do see typically the Warforged, the Burst AR, but not as common as the other weapons, but still very, very early on in the game right now. Team still trying to rotate around and try to figure out where the best spot is for zone.
Surprise, definitely a team that puts in a ton of prep. We watched it throughout the scripts all week long, and now it's just down to execution here. See the pick stat, as Muzz hasn't missed a single regional FNCS finals since Chapter 2 of Season 7
Wow.
2021. This is that preparation that we talk about. And what's really crazy about Buzz is, you know, he's gone through these ebbs and flows, right? He knows what it's like to almost be at the peak, then hit the lows, and then fight your way back to the top of the conversation. Buzz has just been consistent, especially in the last couple of years. But let's get into the action over here. Into the storm we go.
Yeah, gotta be careful though. This is a 2v2 fight going down, but coming into the west side of the map, a possible third party to try to interrupt all the fun that's going down. Pluto just pausing here. Just letting that team disengage. Doesn't want to take an ill-advised fight, or at least continue it, getting too greedy. But CDZ and Nut, the sneak play is in. He's able to create a little bit of distance, but he still takes some damage. No big pots there, so he's going to be capped at the amount of HP and shield he's going to get back. And you see they're taking that as an opportunity while one's healing. They're trying to 2v1 the other. Use the numbers to their advantage.
That definitely goes for the edit. The pre-fire was good right through the window and gets the knock, and now the aggression as he needs to capitalize on this moment. Of course, they get the finish, so that's going to give him a little bit more time. That other duo, though, taking pop shots here in the distance. Now teams decided they want to jump in, possibly get in on the mix. CDZ and Nut have to think twice about whether or not they want to take a clean 2-on-2, and it seems like that other team backs off. They're going to give them the space that they want.
You can kind of see the zone moving on over toward the north, the eastern side, so a lot of traffic could end up here, especially fighting for those mending machines. The team in Sunken Shore is already on that. Pluto's just trying to close the gap. He is literally on a clock, less than 5 seconds. If he doesn't find at least an apple in a crate, he's going to go down, but he escapes this fight here where Nut and CDZ are still going crazy, landing shot after shot here. Doesn't matter what duo is right in front of them, and it does look like Pluto did actually end up going down. He did not find the lucky heal, and that's all because of Nut and CDZ's third party to start this whole altercation.
Yeah, first thing I was thinking was like very smart, dip into the building, try to find something quick to heal with, but luck was not on his side. CDZ and Nut, though, do have things under control here. It seems like because Nut's down and low on material count, they're actually going to call for the disengage. A little too much action happening here for CDZ and Nut. They're going to take their small win, but that's a big setback on the clock there as they have exhausted all their heavy materials here pretty late into the early game. Diminished. Javi on the other side, though. Here's a team that NA Central has definitely been looking at and talking about. Javi in particular, as he's continued to kind of earn his name, right, amongst the elite players.
Yeah, and just because of the format, you know, teams different age spread around. You're not going to get every single finalist in one lobby. So Javi and Diminished is kind of using that as an opportunity. They're not even landing at their actual drop because the Acorn and Bolts aren't in this lobby. They're landing at Frosted Flats. So they're just taking advantage of the format, the heat stages, really doing their homework. To look on board visuals and threats from New Sanctuary. They haven't had to rotate long from Cluster Coast, but they immediately get in toward that edge of zone. With it's already pulling down towards the south, the eastern edge as well. They're just hoping a lot of the teams that are still around Sunken Shores, that are still around the west side of the map, rotate in slowly, and that's how they're going to try to get their surge. Because uncontested, you got to imagine where they're at now.
Yeah, the main benefit, of course, to being uncontested is you have all the time to stick to your strat, get to those key positions, and then be the thorn in the side for everyone else who has to make their lane rotates. For those that are contested, I mean, depending on how prepared the opponents are around you, it'll be that much more difficult. We'll see how things develop here shortly. Jargu, Carillion, gonna set up a bit of a lurk here, Jacob. You have Donnie's team in the distance. You have Carlitos and Yuki up top, already in their surge base. Jargo and Carillion actually have 2 eliminations as well.
Yeah, this is a team that, you know, they were fighting visuals and threats at the Cluster Coast. Again, seeing some different drops that they're trying to take advantage of here. They already have the 2 eliminations. I got to imagine it was because of that contested drop. And Carillion is somebody that, when he gets in a fight, you almost feel like he can win it against almost everybody. I've seen him take 1v2s against Peterbot and Koyo as well. So this is kind of a team that is starting to resurge as one of the teams on the region. But CDZ, Nut, they end up one fight after another. They return back to their contested drop spot at Heatwave Harbor, trying to go for the HP and the loot that we were talking about earlier. They end up against another team, and now they're just better off than they were seconds ago.
Just full loadout upgrade as well. So talk about getting delivered some goods here at the drop, and I guess the risk ends up paying off for them. A big amount of eliminations here is just going to give them the confidence that they're looking for, but I'm thinking they might have the recipe for success to play for a victory now. We'll just see if they don't end the zone for too much longer. Crypton and Webster on the other side, going for a bit of a dead side rotate as they're looping very wide around the outskirts here.
You can see another one of those mythics. This runner here with the burst AR does drop from one of the bosses. And where I was talking about the difference between the pistols, the SMGs, this one is almost a must-have. No matter if you're better with the pistol or not, just deals a ton of damage and an increased fire rate boost. But for them, they're just taking a slow approach, run into as little people as possible while they ride the zone and try to make their way in. Ritual and Cold, they're literally just a few steps away, but with that shockwave, they just want to close the amount of time they're out in the open, so that way they don't even take a single lick of damage. You see Cold already weak, having to dig deep into his bag of chug jugs.
About the third or fourth duo now we're seeing as well, running the double chug jug along with the shockwave loadout. They're both going to go into that. Ritual, Cold might be looking to set up the fight here. This is going to be a fight they're going to have to take, right? You think about that surge damage and how things are going to start to, of course, add up and take effect. Dozier and Ishu, here's a team that has been consistently working hard in the background as well. They're slightly above the damage surge threshold. This is I would say more than enough cushion for this first zone, but they're going to need a fight a little later into the game, undoubtedly.
Yeah, they're coming all the way from Lifty Lodge, and honestly, 291 considering they are uncontested, probably taking advantage of
good match, good lot, bro.
And Dozier and Ishu, watching, they are
A
first
lot of good
in
match.
the play-ins on the overall leaderboard, which
They
is
have
how
good
they
match,
landed
good
here
loot.
in heat number 1. And again, they go towards Lifty Lodge, uncontested. They work their way south
Storm
on the map.
search,
They have launch pads and multiple
good, they have
mini
enough
machines
heals
to
to
hit, just like
survive
you're
it.
seeing here on their way there. They just gotta hope nobody's boxed up, ready to fight, because that's what we do see with a lot of the teams that do have access, but 10 below. Oh, big shot's gonna fire. That's gonna push them 112 below. Free Swag just trying to create some extra space. Another mythic in play. He lands that first shot, gets the box up, gets the knock onto Evan. Perfectly played for him to stay alive, but with his teammate going down, brings it into a 1v1. He desperately needs that siphon or any bit of HP here.
Tough. He couldn't get the conversion there to keep him in the game. Free Swag was flexing for a moment there, but even with that exceptional loadout, the pressure from Gary is going to be enough to go ahead and win the exchange in the end. Either way, we'll be keeping tabs on him. This is just game 1. Got to get the jitters out sometimes. Zonda and Okus on the other side. Talk about the return of Okus here as he's dipping his toes back in the Fortnite waters right now. 2 damage below. Not too bad, but remember, it's all about how you trade in exchange. So right now, we're just going to need to do some damage and stay out of harm's way.
Yeah, it's just going to be tough, because even if they do get damage here, pretend they end up 300 above the damage threshold. They almost got a max pull, so taking shockwaves and rotations like this is literally just going to leave you vulnerable, but you almost have no choice in the matter as they're quickly just trying to make their way on over. No shots connecting onto them, but they know since they are so far back on this zone, they have to be picky and choosy for moments like this, because you pause too long, you might hit a couple of shots, but then you bring the attention onto yourself later on in the same rotation.
Oh yeah, but this is a nice clean rotate. Look at that, thread in the needle here, cutting straight through the middle of the pack. Normally, you'd get punished big time for that, but the nice little line of sight breakage there from all the other duos, they traveled a lot of distance here. 146 below as things start to update here. They went from pretty bad to now worse, and they're slipping behind if they can't find themselves in a little bit of action here shortly. Just got the high ground. Looks like Pentabot's up top, but eyes are on Okus here. 165 below now. They're getting tagged by everyone here. Seems like the high ground team is recognizing that they were in a bit of a desperate situation there. And since their second height, it's like they're posing a threat to height. So they're almost asking for that team to focus on them.
Yeah, and another, I wouldn't call it max pull. The players on the south side of the zone got that, but it's definitely going to be a tough one, especially since you're 34 below. Active surge, every 7 or so seconds, 25 damage, and you don't get knocked. You go out of the game altogether. Cold and Rapid, we saw them below the damage threshold. We thought they were going to fight, but they did not take it. And even though it's only 7 below, Ritual could peek out, land a shotgun shot from a far distance and get himself above. He knows this next zone, he will once again fall below, so he needs to play it perfect.
And It's really interesting, right? They had 2 full chug jugs when we first tuned in with them, and a team right next door. They could have took the fight, but they also could have just waited it out the way that they did right here, given how much heals they had and try to get damage on the rotate. But in the end, it doesn't pay off, and it seems like that might have been the wrong call. And now they're gonna also get sent to the lobby. And this is long before we're talking real placement points, right? The meaningful back half of the end game is still yet to come here. There's 30+ teams alive.
Yeah, 6 of them need to go down before you even get the beginning of those placement points. Half of them are in the top 10, and then you get to the meat potatoes, top 5, top 3 situation. As we jump on board the boys from Elite, Yamzo and Josh, 400 damage above. They land at Wonky Land, so not too far of a journey for them so far, but a whole nother team trying to push their way in. Josh fires the shot, but he takes one right back, 55 damage, and the spray is coming in, so they're trying to build some extra space to alleviate this pressure.
Playing very smart here. Of course, Yamzo buying Josh a little bit of room as well, swapping over to the metal. They are base down extremely strong. Looking from the top down, though, you can see players now starting to kind of hover and congest themselves around a little bit of land that is still in play here, as things are going towards the coast of the Golden Grove. Kaz, Noah plays, making an appearance right now. Can they fight their way to another finals?
16 above. This is like those mental games. You almost want to pad the stats to make sure you don't have to worry about it, but all it takes is one shot being fired back to put you below that damage threshold. They're able to pressure that team out from underneath. Kind of makes it a little bit safer, one less thing to worry about. But if you look off in the distance, right now, Hobby and Aminish is the first team that is starting to build up and look like they're trying to claim that high ground.
Buzz Rise opting to play ultimate low right now. They have enough damage to kind of weather the storm here. They have the luxury of taking their time on these rotates as well, but they go with an early jump here now. Plenty of time to look around and to start to affect the rest of the lobby, download the information that they can continue to play a strong end game here and rotate without taking unnecessary fights or damage. Let's look back to the high ground. Let's look at Hobby and Aminish. What's the situation looking like? You can tell already the commitment with the metal big base here is telling us that they are confident in playing this one out right now, and they're pretty determined to put in work from the high ground.
Yeah, they're even building the makings of a semi-surge base up here, just making sure nobody can safely shockwave up and try to contest them in the clouds. They have a good amount of shockwaves for this next zone, but they get it relatively close to them. They don't have to worry about shockwaving out. They just got to worry about maintaining their composure against Power and Penta, who are also building up. It's 2 teams trying to battle each other out to try to claim that high ground. Power and Penta are a little bit closer to where the zone is going to go, so Hobby and Aminish are trying to focus them down, distract them to hopefully they go down altogether.
Not gonna lie, we'll just have to jump back into that in a second because Buzz is cooking down here. He's already picked up an elimination here in the end game and then destroying players on the outer edge. You know those refreshes are gonna come very much welcome, but look at this. Hobby and Aminish didn't like the pressure that was coming in from Penta and Power. They end up giving it up here as they kind of play this second hype, but we know that once you concede the ultimate high ground, you are the target. And they switch on over to Wood, so this is all telling that players have sort of started to gas out here, but Power, Penta, with just 27 builds, they're trying to give themselves some more placement points right now.
Yeah, both of those teams really investing a lot to try to claim that high ground. Hopefully it works out for them because we know how one shockwave could change the course of how things are going in the clouds, and they're keeping that pressure onto Hobby and Aminish, who are keeping themselves on that second height territory, one shockwave away from being able to contest it overall. And it might have been a smart play. They used all of their material, and so instead of battling it out and maybe a third-party team comes in, we're saying, hey, we'll revisit that topic later. But Penta and Power have not slowed down, but you see the ammo, the medium bullets. Penta is quickly running out here, so there's only a certain amount of pressure he's only going to be able to keep putting out.
That's right. Now jumping down to it. It's Josh and Yamzo here, single elim, end games in front of them. They're going to need a fight for a refresher, but hold that thought as Aminish, Hobby get into the action here. They also needed to fight for something here, and they end up getting the elims, but is there enough of a refresh? There sure is. Hobby finds himself with 400 plus material. Aminish gets a little bit of wood there as well, and they springboard their way to 4 elims and a nice little position here for the end game.
And all anybody has to do is look up, but for now, Pen and Power, smooth sailing, threats and visuals underneath. You can see they haven't really been challenged too much, almost full chug jugs, materials looking good, Muzz and Rise being forced outside of the zone, tick by tick, they're taking a ton of damage. But Rise and Muzz, Monster is a team that had a bad day one in the play-ins. They made up for it big in day two, just like Josh, getting back-to-back eliminations on Nut and CDZ.
See it, visuals moving around the outskirts here. Taking a lot of damage there. It's about 30 HP donated to the Storm. Power though, Penta still haven't given it up, and although they only have a single build here, make it just one right now. Muzz and Rise strike fast here from the outside. He actually gets the knock on the cross there. Rise does as well. He gets the full finish. It's a fight for high ground. Eoxy and Jojo Fishy want a piece of the action as well, and they're going to be the kingmakers now who actually remain in control.
Yeah, perfectly timed. They're just waiting for the 10th, 11th zone. They know they have the materials and shockwaves, so they just send it up, forcing Muzz and Rise to go back down below with not only missing HP and shield, but the lack of materials that they invested for it all. And now they're getting tagged up in the distance. Eoxy and Jojo Fishy, you can see they're running out of build. Jojo Fishy just has one material left. If anybody starts to target out that high ground, it could turn the tables instantly.
Look at this, Rise left by himself as Muzz ends up falling there. Muzz looking to take a fight with the team that's above him. I like the play, but not enough to stay in the storm for it. But there it is, the refresher onto Donnie. Oh, he gets a lot there to work with, some extra heals, extra mats as well. Jojo and Oxy have already exhausted their builds. They're almost forced to come on down. And everyone that we've jumped in with, Jacob here, does not have material.
Everybody invested so much for the earlier high ground. You're seeing Javi and Minish just kind of stuck down below, recycling builds, but Rise is still going off. One elimination, hanging on by a thread, but he's weaving in and out of the builds in a 1v1 against Josh. High ground is pressuring him further and further down, essentially saving Josh here in that moment, but he has the mythic one-pump shotgun, so he can definitely deal a ton of damage almost any situation he's in, but Rise is still not done just yet. He's running out of materials, but he's putting himself in a good position to look back. Down goes a minute. Rise in a 1v1 against Javi. He gets cut short, but you got to give him an A for effort.
That was so close, bringing Javi down to 30 HP. Slightly bigger of a shot, and he would have had the clutch of his career. But Dojo Aoxy making it look nice and easy, although they have no material. The timing was just brutal to everyone else in the lobby, and they're coasting their way through right now. Flex here has a solo down low. I almost think everyone's a solo here. The pressure's just too much. Flex gets a little bit more points. He's inside the top 3. But Eoxy and Jojo, this is their game to win right now.
Yeah, they just got to go through. Jargo and Carillion got 7 eliminations down below on the low ground. They're instantly pressuring. They have that mythic pistol. A lot of the new mythics, if you get them in the right player's hands, they deal a ton of damage. Shockwaving up, trying to focus on the Jargo. Bounces himself out of zone, takes a lot of damage, and that's going to lead to his demise. Eoxy goes down. Jojo Fishy gets one. 1v1 situation. Jargo and Carillion clutch up again.
With the 9 elims at the end there. And not only that, they actually did it from the low ground. Just unprecedented victory royale for themselves there. Talk about a difficult situation to be in. But in the end, Jacob, they end up pulling through.
Yeah, they clutched up to make it to the summit land, and now they clutched up again to make it to the grand finals. That's game 1, Zeke.
Nah. You cannot cut it that close in game number 1. Jargu and Carillion, and almost 10 eliminations, 9 to their name again in game 1. That is a massive statement, right, guys? You come out and you say, hey, look, we're going to go ahead and win game 1. We're going to do it in this fashion. 5 HP!
I mean, what's crazy to me is that we literally have not seen them compete since Major 1. We didn't get to watch the open qualifiers unless you were watching them through a co-streamer. And then we get one game of Jargu and Carillion, and that's it now. We don't get to see them until next week, but honestly, playing that low ground was really smart. We saw Eoxy and Jojo Fishy kind of controlling the high ground, and so I thought that there was just too much chaos on the low ground for anyone to really be able to stick together long enough to fight them in a 2v2. I thought it was all solos on the low ground, but Carillion and Jargu played that mid ground so well, Vivid, that they were able to stay alive all the way to the end.
Without a doubt, just one of those scenarios where it kind of feels like the entire lobby was up against the high ground. I mean, they just had to invest so much to actually go ahead and secure it. They actually and Jodo did a great job of securing it, but in the end, they just did not have enough to go ahead and clutch up. And for Carillion and Jargu, man, if you're not necessarily familiar with their names, we can't really blame you because this will actually be the only third time for each one of these players that have made it to an FNCS finals. I mean, Jacob kind of called it out as well. In major number 1, they had clutched up there to make it over to the Summit land, and as it currently stands, these two guys, they're on a hot streak.
It's gotta feel so good right now to start again, because just think, if you're every other duo, you're thinking we're gonna be here for 5 games, we need a victory royale, we need to consistently. You come out and win game 1, you're like, all right, everybody, see you next weekend. Man, congratulations to them. But of course, more happened in the game. First, a break. When we return, we'll break down what we saw. We'll see you shortly. To heat number 1 and major number 2. It's great to see you. In case you missed out on game number 1, Jargu and Trillium got themselves the first victory royale. That means they don't have to play anymore. They're good. The next thing they have to think about is next weekend's finals. Congratulations once again to them. Of course, though, other things have happened and developed out of just game number 1. We wanted to highlight here for you really fast. Hobby and Aminish, almost said the wrong name there. Apologies. Getting so crazy over here. Hobby and Aminish, though, did end currently in 3rd place, aka technically 2nd place, right? If you look up, you see the 1,000 points. Don't freak out. It just means they've gone through. So in terms of consistency, right now they're sitting in 2nd place. 4th place with 6 eliminations. That's a pretty strong start, Kelly.
100%. And you know, when we go into these heats, there's this weird dichotomy of, oh, I played one game, I win, and I get to go on. But then we also look to the top 10, and top 10 is relatively easy as far as competitive tournaments go for the cutoff. To make it to the top 10 outside of winning a victory royale, all you need is really 2 good games out of the 5. So for Javi and Aminish to already solidify themselves in 3rd place right now, all they effectively need, Vivid, is 1 more game, 1 good game, and then they pretty much have solidified their spot to the grand finals.
Yeah, in major number 1, when we had a similar, what felt like skill level, right? That assessed in summary the amount of like FNCS finals kind of combined to give some sort of a metric to the lobby. This specific lobby here was kind of comparable in the sense that the qualification for that was around 140 points. We'll have to keep a close eye on that, but obviously, like you said, 66 points towards that already for Avi and Aminish. They're doing quite well. The high ground was just so crazy, though, Zeke. Obviously, Avi and Aminish were kind of in the mixer, but we had so many other teams kind of going for it, right? We saw Penta and Power up there kind of combating for it, Aoxy and JoJo as well.
Oh my gosh, it was a crazy, right? Everyone's thinking the same thing. We want to make sure we get our spots as quickly as possible. Now, on the flip side, we saw a handful of solo clutch situations, right? I want to highlight 6 plays, Uz and Rise. Rise kind of put in the situation, all right, I'm by myself. I got to try and make something happen. If I can't play for the victory royale, I got to play for maybe even that top 10. But they get a 6th place with 5 elims out of the game, right? Like, that's still really, really good, especially when we're trying to aim for consistency.
Yeah, and when you see that those placement points haven't really started, like, building up yet because there's still 15 teams alive in the lobby, all it is for you is to just survive. Make sure that you're making those placement points. It's a lot harder to be able to get eliminations in a solo run, unless you're like an incredible fragger. So for Rise to be able to do this, kind of stick around the low to mid ground, play on that back end of zone to allow everyone else to rush the front, gave him just more time, more survivability, and that's why we see him at the top of our leaderboard.
Incredible run right there from Rise. Obviously so close in his grasp with just 1 more single elimination. 1 more siphon that kind of comes through to keep him alive just a little bit longer. But the margins are close here in major number 1 already. And we've only been through 1 singular game. So I'm excited to kind of see how this starts to pan out.
Yeah, man. I mean, we just think we have 4 more games just today, and then we have 5 tomorrow and 5 the next day. Crazy stuff. Wanted to highlight as well, Aoxy and JoJo Fishy, they did end 2nd place there with only 3 eliminations. Now, that's not insane, right? But again, if we're trying to be in the top 10, or we're trying to aim for consistency, a 2nd place is pretty dang good.
Well, also, I think a lot of these teams need to play towards their strengths and heats. They can't really play the standard finals lobby that we know because this isn't essentially a finals lobby. We're missing 2/3 of the competition. So for them to play to their strengths, going for high ground and not necessarily going for this heavy elimination game that other players are going for. And I really do appreciate that because you can look at that loadout. They have no ammo, they have no builds, they really didn't have anything. So just making sure that no one's really paying attention to them on high ground was probably the best course of action for them.
Love this for Aoxy and JoJo Fishy, though, because they're starting to kind of what feels like pick up some steam here, right? Kind of qualifying to that RES LAN event later on this year. So already they kind of proved themselves throughout this year, but specifically when it comes down to the Battle Royale game mode here, right? They haven't actually been able to make it to a finals this year yet, but they did such a good job last year in trios to go ahead and consistently make it through to the finals. They placed pretty well there. So the fact that, again, in game number 1, they're starting off pretty good here. I feel like Aoxy and JoJo, man, they're going to be putting themselves on a lot of people's radar.
I like that, right? It's always about building that experience. Continue to put your name out there and highlight, hey, look, we're a duo that deserves respect. So put respect on that name. I'm getting word, though. Game number 2 is ready. We're jumping right back into the action. So, casters, over to you.
Game 1 has just showed us that you might be the biggest name in Fortnite, one of the superstars, but you still have to watch out for these up-and-coming players. Not that Carillion is by any means, but another clutch to make it to finals.
Hey, they played it very well. They are, again, remaining consistent. These are teams that we know their names, and we know their names for good reason.
Yeah, hopefully game 1 has all the jitters, the nervousness out of the way for a lot of these teams. Muzz and Rise, I was talking about it through the game. A very, very bad day 1 in play-ins. They clutched up huge, almost flawless in day 2 to make it here. And they're basically picking up where they left off. Remember, Rise was so close to an FNCS championship. Muzz has multiple on different regions. And so you take those 2 players together, and I think we're going to have some success today. It's just all about consistency, though. With game 1 done, Monster, we still have 4 more.
Yeah, definitely. So, again, in the dynamic changes routes around, right? Teams that win, they get punched out for the evening. So the map kind of loosens up a bit. We've seen in the past, if their drop spot is really good, it'll also force other teams to try to mix things up. So let's see what game number 2 has in store for us now.
As Monster was alluding to, Jargu and Carillion punched their ticket directly to the grand finals. They were landing at Sinister Strip, which was already contested. So even though they're no longer in the lobby, they get to watch the rest of the weekend's action. That spot still might have a few names fighting out for it. And it is one of those drops that has a ton of loot, but already you're seeing the shakeups. Moneymaker for Nye, contested game 1, Monster, uncontested here in game 2.
Yeah, definitely. This is going to give them, I think, a little bit of confidence that they need to kind of get back into their groove, right? You talk about a team that obviously has sacrificed a lot, right? Changing their entire livelihood to come on over to NA and try to compete amongst what, you know, this region, of course, has to offer. Not because it's any easier, but because this is the thing you want to do to boost your career, right? As much as anything else. So we will be keeping an eye on them. Jump into, of course, Noisy's team here. And Hottie, you know, they had some success in their early game bouts, but, you know, what we saw last time was that because they chased the team early, they actually didn't get all the loot that they were looking for. And it seems like the split drop is not exactly working for them.
Yeah, you see they just kind of grab some loot, but sometimes when two teams kind of clash in those split drops, but you're seeing over towards Heatwave Harbor from Major 1, Major 2. You see the little duck, it just moved all around from Cluster Coast to Heatwave Harbor. It just adds an extra element, a little bit more loot, and even resource material for metal. So you might see why teams are kind of making it a focal point as Muzz and Rise. They have this whole split drop to themselves. They want to keep it that way. Free swag on the one side, but Muzz, all he's doing is wasting his time so Muzz can get his teammate Rise here, and they can 2v1.
Yep, there it is, little knock there from Rise finding a side angle, and you know, Rise is just continuing to put up the numbers here. Just like that, they, I think, make a statement to Free Swag saying, hey, I don't know what you had going on last game, but landing on our drop is not going to work for you either, buddy.
Just helps them out a little bit. Great surge for their early game to go back to business as usual. Set up a surge tower. But with a lot of the contested fights, you see, like, with changing drops, players going for a little bit more of a split drop. They're just trying to avoid the early game fights, so that way they don't take either early game eliminations with their teammate going down or just too much damage. But you see Cold and Ritual all the way from the south side of the Battlewood chasing down a whole team. Bags, Jax, and Dinker. And that's another one of those situations, Monster, where Jax and Dinker, they're like, hey, we're going to land at Battlewood. Hopefully players are too distracted, which how crowded it actually is. 4 teams landing there. But Ritual and Cold, they will not share the south side with anybody. And we saw them go through Peterbot and Poyo, which is why they went back to Sinister Strip.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is what pro players do. They got to condition the drop, and, you know, it starts with, of course, heats and div kind of games as well. But take a look here with visuals and threats. Over down by the coast, things are pretty chill here. Jumping over to Aoxy and Jojo Fishy, the team that just nearly squeezed out that win there. Talk about well-timed high ground execution for them to go ahead and kind of push Muzz and team off, but they went up there with a game plan, no mats to really back it up, kind of like in a dominating way. So I was really curious. I think they were probably hoping to actually finish Muzz and Rise in that last end game, given that they needed the refresh.
Just one of those situations where a split second can literally decide if you got to play a couple more games in the heat stages or just get to sit back, watch, and enjoy the rest of this one. As Hottie, double pump, trying to go for a little bit of a lurk. Third-party shots come in their direction, but it didn't make enough noise for the team to actually hear. They just built one piece and just kept on lurk, and they tried to fire the shots off, but they just missed that opportunity right there. But I'm not sure if they know where Hottie's actually at up until now.
Yeah, definitely a little side angle play there, but again, kind of missed his opportunity. Didn't feel comfortable going through the cone there. Tries to play for the window angle, and that's not going to work off. So here they go, opting to fight the team that's outside instead. Here comes Pump. Playing around the outskirts again. Good defense here. So Hottie and Pump just not finding any kind of opportunity to swing things around, but look at that in the distance. This is the same exact story, the same song and dance. You have Willie's team hearing what's going on. This time, they're a lot earlier to the fight as opposed to game number 1, and already their influence is going to be felt here. Pump forced to the low ground now, shot a few times and kind of gives up his strong positioning. Hottie wants to disengage from this, and he gets shot on the way out. So this is a pretty rough spot to be in. They're pinched by another duo.
Yeah, 4 teams here. One of them going directly in to crash it. The other one staying on the outskirts saying, hey, if you shockwave to escape, more times than not, you do shockwave out of zone to the south side. They were ready and waiting just to get a little bit more damage. Some teams in this situation, Monster, probably fighting for eliminations, probably fighting for points and loot. Other teams, especially back a piece on the outside, probably just fighting for Storm Surge. They'll take 10 and keep on moving as long as they don't take damage themselves.
Pluto here, just trying to hold things down right now, and everyone sort of simmers down now. And this is what happens when 4 teams are deciding that they all want a little bit of the action right now. It's smarter for everyone to kind of wait this one out. They have the storm on their side, and realistically, you want to kind of sneak out of the situation. You don't want to fight for too much longer. As I say that, I'm so confused as to why Pump would throw himself back into danger, but here we have it.
It's literally so tight here on this side of the map. Pump just pushes out. He gets beamed by Willie, who peeked for a second just to get beamed. His teammate goes to reunite with him just so they don't get pushed. He gets tagged up, and it just goes to show exactly you're right. Maybe at this stage of the game, your loadout might not be as full as it could. You might need some materials, so it might be the best bet to try to disengage outward. We're seeing 2 of the 4 teams already trying that, but we still see Hadi and Willie, both of these 2 separate teams, just lurking around, trying to catch the jump on one another.
This is just them trying to see if anyone makes a mistake, if anyone gets greedy here and kind of flashes themselves early. But no, Hadi, Pump, staying close, but not too close here to the other opponents. And look at this, the zone even favors the side, so it's gonna give them even more time to kind of sit around if they so choose. Meanwhile, in the distance, we have another team kind of looking off to figure out what's happening here. They've attracted a lot of attention here on the outskirts.
Yeah, especially when teams can kind of just look down and hold them out. You see the edge of the zone at Heatwave Harbor. Yes, it can still pull towards the north and center up, but already you're seeing kind of the left side. The zone is just out there. The line just goes outside of the map. That tells me that we are moving west on this zone for the most part. Some spots like Heatwave Harbor, Calamari Canyon, or any of those split drops in between might be a place that we see a lot of teams bring their attention to. Kuvos, Latino Logic, you see them on the low side. They know that team is up there, but they may not necessarily know they disengaged outward to try to grab hold of that mending machine, something that we're going to see a lot in these lobbies, control of the mending machine or even fights for them.
Oh yeah. Someone's gonna have to obviously bite the bullet there. We'll see how it ends up playing out. Let's take a look at the high ground positioning here from Okus. You have Moneymaker Fnyajin on the outside. This is the Sinister Strip positioning here. About 6 teams in this general area. Meanwhile, Threats is in a fight for his life. He's caught Pump on the rotate here on the outside of the Sunken Shores. So between him and Visuals, you know, they kind of also made the move around the dead side, and they find themselves in this kind of whirlwind of teams that were down here.
Yeah, and all the way from Cluster, you saw with the zone forcing a lot of teams towards Sunken Shores. It's a no-brainer rotation for Threats and Visuals, just immediately move towards the west, but they had no idea how many teams were in and around Sunken Shores. But at the end of the day, Monster, it does work out for them. Threats able to pick up that one information. Even with Visuals going down, you got to imagine they got to be feeling good, because it's not just the elimination, it's the Storm Surge that they're able to accumulate with Visuals going down.
Yeah, things almost got out of hand there, but obviously with Threats being able to clutch up like that, fend off Hadi, they have things under control now, and they don't have to go into the dangerous city to play for a reboot. Now on over to the Sanctuary here. You have Wallahi, Chase right now. It's kind of lurking about. I think they also recognize there's potential danger nearby. Plenty leftover loot here for them to kind of scavenge across. Yeah, the team that was holding them down from up top, you saw them sort of glancing back. They definitely knew there was a team there, but they're gonna opt to go ahead and get safe. Meanwhile, back on over to Pluto. Kind of gave this one up a bit. But again, you start looking at that storm. It's going far, far west right now.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of have those decisions being made. just looking at the mini-map, just knowing where those teleportation tunnels are underneath, that might be an option for them, but you got to be very, very careful because you got to imagine other teams possibly doing the same thing, but they have to make a very close and similar rotation to what Threats and Visuals just did, but the timing is just worse for them because as they make it to the zone, the potential for teams to hold them out is going to be there. As we jump on board, and CDZ, a team that lands at the Heatwave Harbor. You see the Mythic Pump. That's from that little duck mini game. You go ahead and start the race. You wait for it to finish, and then 2 cannons kind of shoot out loot. It's not a 100% rate for the Mythic, but it's definitely boosts the confidence once you do get it in your hands.
Yeah, most certainly. And you see, when a team's playing very confidently, you could just tell. The last game, obviously, we had folks like Javi and Aminish feeling very strongly about playing for high ground. They committed super early. I'm curious to see if that's the strategy here for them today. Did they just come in with the full intention to be the high ground team? We'll end up finding out. Cold, Ritual. 3 elims right now. Trying to make up for that last game. This takes me way back. That takes me all the way back to like 2022, 23 days. Snowball tossing at bases. We've seen a lot with Fortnite.
I have no idea, but that was one of the last things in the world I expected, just trying to throw a touchdown pass. And honestly, it's very right and fitting for them because they're a team to where I thought we would see it in that last game for that moment we saw them kind of on the line with Storm Surge. They can bulldoze. They can truck stick a lot of players out of their way, but they also can play smart. They can play methodical. And in this game, it does look like they're taking a slower but faster approach. They're very, very quick to leave the battle woods and position, but now they're taking that slow approach because they don't want to make any drastic mistakes. But only 32 above, 1x, 419 over towards Sunken Shores, and we saw how many teams throughout the course of the game has been rotating in and around Sunken Shores. So this is one risky rotation.
See what the rotate ends up providing for them. Said it's risky. They're taking the risk to the maximum level right now, though. They're pushing straight into a team that's here. They seem to have caught the drop on them, gotten them a little bit by surprise right now. I was gonna say, what's 1x's game plan here? He's got really low HP. They're gonna be forced to chug here. And this is already not going the way they wanted. All teams have now kind of reset here in this moment. And honestly, Jacob, I'm more concerned now that I think about it, storm sickness. These teams have not left the storm, I think, this entire time, as it's been such a far west pool.
Yeah, it's already, you got to imagine at least 300 of the 500 HP. What Monster means, Storm Sickness, you have 500 HP to stay in the zone. After that, you'll get a warning. After the warning, another 100 HP goes by, and you take double the damage of the storm that you're in. And right now, it's the 5th zone. 2 tick, you got Storm Sickness, 4. It's not too much of a worry. But in the next 55 or so seconds, we're going to go into that 5-tick zone. So if you're outside and your plan is to out-heal it, you better hope you're at least in the position of the zone where it is going to open up and alleviate that pressure.
Look at that, getting into the safe zone with 1 HP. Coming that close here, and no whites to work with as they've exhausted everything in the storm. Only 66 above, so it's likely just a matter of moments before they get taken out. But hey, looking around, there's not many better situations for folks like Zello, Doxy. I mean, there's a reason they also don't have max health. Everyone's pretty weak here.
Yeah,
1x has got the right idea.
Yeah, it's just a huge sign of weakness.
He gets the second.
Wow. 165 below the damage threshold, though. It's going to activate here when it comes to the 6th zone. And 165 for some players, it's not a tough feeling to be in. But when you're weak, you don't have materials, spots in your loadout are empty, sometimes it's a very drastic feeling. And you got to imagine on the other side, Josh Chidiamzo has Jason Malaihi just pushed into their box and gets sent back to the lobby. But that must have been a surprise for Josh Chidiamzo.
Yeah, for a second there, it was like, oh, okay, they got caught off guard, but come on, you're pushing 2 of the strongest in the lobby. They end up shutting down that resistance with no problem there, and it's going to come as a huge refresher. Look at their material count now. This is almost looking like a creative, creative queue in here with a perfect loadout. So we'll see how that plays out, but a very, very strong showing now for Josh. and Yamzo here.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where you almost, your HP gets hit down, shield's gone, you survive the fight, and then you get a far pull, but they're just quick to answer that call and start to rotate on over. 197 below. Active surge, the last mini, 3 ticks is all he can take, so less than 30 seconds for him to get 195 plus damage, and he's quickly on the hunt. The first team he sees, he immediately starts to shoot upward to try to get some of those shots to bleed through, but he is quickly running out of time. Can't even shockwave forward as they lose out here in game 2.
Respect the effort, respect their ability to play to the very last second. That's determination, that's hustle, but in the end, Storm Surge is a tough one to beat here. Aoxy, Jojo Fishy facing the same problems here as well. 40 above, so a little bit more to work with and a much better suited loadout to go ahead and weather the storm, but either way, we're gonna see a little bit, need to see a little bit more from them. Start taking a look at things from the widescreen here, Jacob. I see Josh, I see Yamzo sort of maybe eyeing up the high ground here.
Yeah, and you can kind of see the teams immediately as that zone pulls, some of the first to be proactive, to try to beat every other team to the punch, but that's because they have the north side of the map. You see very, very little teams in that path. It's Ritual and Cold and everybody here on this side of the rotation that I'm a little bit more worried about. Even though they're 834 above, they have to rotate alongside so many other teams with or without the shockwave. That's why you see Cold peek into the cone, gathering that information. He might even possibly wait for some of the teams to rotate in front, so there's less he has to worry about on his backside.
Well, it's really cool about, Ritual and Cold falling in game number 1 is they get a little bit of that reality check, right? They have to fight for their surge here. Kind of puts things into perspective. And now they are flying ahead when it comes to damage, but big shot here from down low. Is that what was that? Potential hunting rifle or something like that? I don't know. But he got taken down really fast here. This is going to be all up to Josh now.
He's one of those selfless plays, though. Yamzo, he was taking Storm Surge damage, and instead of using the med kit to try to stay alive, he's just letting Josh go ahead and have it, get the siphon mats, the material, and he's put a lot of pressure here on Josh to solo clutch, but it shows what they think about each other and their chemistry. Yamzo willing to go down, give the extra resources to a player like Josh, somebody who is then taking the scene by storm, but he's only 25 above that damage threshold. His eyes glued to the backside of the zone. He's hoping somebody oversteps their boundaries, makes a mistake like Zara building in wood. We both know it's a sign of weakness, and he bleeds some of those shots through to get more damage.
Yeah, he knows that he's got to keep the pressure on here. Almost putting up a pump fake here on the outside of the zone right now. But looking up to high ground, little chop comes through. Zonda, Okus here, kind of eyeing things up. You still have threats and visuals in the game. Again, very much alive right now. Threats should be able to burn through what's left of his heals, and they'll still have a fighting chance here in the end. Meanwhile, team's starting to drop now. This is where the payouts are going to start coming through for, of course, the big placement points. It's about consistency, but it's also about, of course, getting that Victor Royale. Pikes trying to hide on the high ground here to keep the attention off of him. Ends up being spotted out on the rotate. That's the last of what he had left, so this is just his solo performance now, as Josh is doing the same here on the low ground.
Yeah, the only blessing each of the maps, they don't have to worry about Storm Surge anymore, but Josh goes down. Not exactly where he'd hope to finish on the leaderboard for this game, but Okus Zonda flying across, trying to maintain their composure up above. Okus needing a little bit of help here, but luckily for him, you see the materials being passed on over the heels coming out. On the bottom, Rise and Muzz, they might be in the mud, but they are making sure to stomp everyone in their path. And for Rise and Muzz, that's a huge upgrade. And again, the selfless plays giving Muzz that gold or mythic shotgun.
Yeah, what's interesting about what we're seeing from Rise and Muzz is this is how they will also play the grand finals typically. They are a very, very strong low ground team. So there's just another day in the office for them at this point. Okus Zonda, on the other hand, making their first showing in God knows how long now, but it's looking like he's putting up the big flex here for the high ground. But this is another team that really doesn't have much to hold it, so I am curious to see what their next play is. Muzz, shockwaves to the front side. They take a lot of unfortunate damage there.
And Another crash coming in the backside of the zone. Okus goes almost all the way down. Cold is going to get knocked completely, leaving Ritual by himself. But as of late, watching these games, Ritual is willing and waiting for the clutch. 3 of their 7 eliminations, even digging back deep into the zone to grab the extra materials before he has to shockwave on out inside of the top 14. Just 3 more teams go down. You get at least half of the placement points for your effort if you're Ritual.
Just showing you that even though he goes down, the comms are quick, the decision making is very fast. Ritual wastes no time to go ahead and play for the Chug Jug, get the refresh from Cold's body there. That's going to be the difference maker between, you know, falling very early and possibly making it all the way through to the end game, fighting for a clutch win. Hobby and Aminish, though, find themselves back on high ground. Okay, they're coming back for more here in game 2. Rise Muzz still doing exactly what they've continued to do, is play this mid ground and low ground very, very well right now.
5 points in county though for Ritual. Just going ahead and playing his Chug Jug. It's the edit open because he knows he's going to have to start running possibly before it's out. But he's definitely on the clock and definitely on notice if teams catch wind of him in the backside of zone. But another elimination for Muzz as he takes down Ishu. They're getting closer and closer to that low ground. Eventually might clash with Clixie and Aiden, but Aiden takes a huge haymaker from Visuals. He gets the knock on the 1, 2 HP, cannot survive the onslaught, but luckily he put Threads in such a winning position to take that fight, taking down Webster. Not only they get elimination points, but placement points as well.
That's just so impressive. Ritual's doing the same thing for himself as well. He goes from top 15 to top 5 now. And just like that, he's earned himself so many more points as a solo. Meanwhile, Threat's kind of lurking about. He hears what's happening down low. Muzz and Rise have to be careful here, though. All depends on where Threats decides to put his focus and attention here. Ritual still in the zone, by the way. Playing kind of like the disruptor from the backside, earning points as well.
Yeah, now he's going to have to start going, running low on those Chug Jugs. Does have the med kits, but if he has any hope of getting that shield back on up, he has to get to the zone now. Hobby and Aminish not giving up any inches here in this fight. You can see Aminish at the bare minimum. No Chug Jugs, no med kits, no second win condition. That's why they're not dropping low unless they have to, as Muzz gets the elimination onto Ritual, bringing us down to a 2v2. It might seem clean and easy, but Hobby and Muzz continue to trade shots back and forth. But Aminish, the only player in this endgame right now that is full health. Muzz, Rise, they're trying to push him off into the zone, but they're not finding the opportunity up until now. Shields are gone, HP going with it, but Aminish makes the play. The first knock is going to come in. 2v1 situation, but no, it is going to be a 1v1. Muzz gets the Eliv onto Hobby, but Aminish will not stand for that. 7 eliminations and a trip to the grand finals.
You know, for a second there, Muzz, Rise, they were asking for Aminish to pay the toll. Come on over if you want to cross this bridge, but he came through with the receipts and put the numbers up at the end there. You'll love to see it, and just like that, they have done enough now, Jacob, to secure their way to the finals, of course, but Muzz and Rise flying up the leaderboard there as well. Game 2 now, Zeke, is officially wraps.
Yo, I was looking kind of clean right now, moving around them. I was like, I for sure for a second was like, okay, look, this is Rise and Buzz, right? Like, we could go ahead and shut this down. And I'm like, okay, hold on. What? What's going? This did not go the way that I thought. Shout outs to Javi and Aminish getting that victory. I'll remember. Now that's it. They don't have to play any more Fortnite today. They just can focus on next week and start building plans for then. But that's got to be such a just an incredible boost to the confidence.
100%. And honestly, like, as far as confidence goes for this duo right here, they've been doing a pretty good job. They formed kind of just in the last moment of Major 1. So to see them still sticking together and then performing to this level, holding that high ground so much more confidently than we saw Game 1's high ground, that is what we want to see. This was honestly much more of a standard Fortnite game than what we usually see in heats as far as height control goes. So Vivid, this is exactly what we want to see from Hobby and Aminish.
So Navi and Aminish have kind of flown onto the scene here, like you kind of mentioned, forming last minute. But the thing that's most impressive about them is that I feel like they are kind of to go ahead and get a little bit of a reputation for being a high ground team. I mean, these guys constantly find themselves kind of up in the mix. They're constantly trying to fight for it. I have seen them in the past not be too over-committal for it either. You know, if it doesn't work out, they're kind of happy to go ahead and play elsewhere on the end game. But yeah, I like this from Hobby and Aminish. And you know, we got to go ahead and call up their placements, right? Because a 6th place in Major 1. They made it all the way to the Summit Finals on Sunday. They played there. They got 35th, so not too good there. But yeah, I'm liking this from these guys. They're playing super, super well. A 4th place into a 1st place on their heat. It's going to be qualifying them to the Grand Finals. And yeah, look forward to these guys, seeing them on the high ground in the finals.
Tell you, Minus looking kind of clean there, Minus. Okay, all right. Hey, look, hey, we're looking. We see it. We see it. Again, congratulations to them. Will we see them next weekend? For now, though, a quick break. When we return, 3 more games of Heat #1. So don't you go anywhere.